But what happens when some are able to tilt the market to their advantage? Adam Smith asked the very same question 250 years ago, and the problem can be easily illustrated by taking a walk in the woods. In state and national parks all across the United States, you'll often find signs like this that say, "Please do not feed the animals."
Because if you feed the wild animals, they lose the ability to gather food in the wilderness, and as a result, they tend to be less resilient and their survival is at risk.
Luigi Zingales is professor of entrepreneurship and finance at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago.
I think that a similar sign should be put in Washington to say, please don't feed business. Precisely because I love business, I don't want business to become fat and unable to compete in the global marketplace.
Smith was very suspicious of partnerships between government and business. That's effectively what we call cronyism today.
This is the result of feeding the animals Washington style. In recent years, housing values around the US Capitol have skyrocketed.
There is no real industry, there is no real commerce, and it's pretty scary that wealthiest counties in the United States are in the suburbs of Washington, D.C.
The top 2 richest counties in the United States and 6 of the top 10 are suburbs of Washington, D.C.
All that money is basically money that is sucked from the system and wasted in lobbying.
Lobbying pays very well, and not just for the lobbyists. The real payoffs go to the corporations they represent.
Smith thought that any institution, government included, could become corrupted if it was too big and made too many decisions centrally.
To widen the market and to narrow the competition is always the interest of the dealers. Any new law or regulation of commerce ought always to be listened to with great precaution.
A series of recent governmental regulations illustrates Adam Smith's fear. Corn ethanol is a biofuel. It's basically fuel that comes from corn. It's more costly and far more inefficient to make than ethanol from sugar. But now, almost 40% of the nation's corn crop goes into making ethanol, which has driven the price of corn way up. It makes corn farmers and processors happy because it gives them a guaranteed profit. But all of us have to pay more for foods that use corn, especially meat and poultry. The fuel companies are required by federal law to buy ethanol, whether they want it or not, or whether motorists want it or not. Between 2007 and 2012, the corn ethanol lobby spent $139 million and in return gained over $28 billion in corn ethanol tax credits.
So once you have this kind of returns, then people will not invest in R&D, they will not invest in new sort of organizational form, they will not invest in new technology, they will not invest in new property, plant and equipment, they will invest in lobbying.
Many corporations prefer to get their profits by legislating them, rather than by selling goods and services that people want on an open market. Adam Smith saw exactly the same forces at work in his day.
What Smith saw was that when business people go to the government and they say, we want a special royal charter, we want special protections from competition, we are a vital national industry and we need special privileges, you got to be careful. Because when this happens, this is really people conspiring to protect their own interests at the expense of others.
Adam Smith understands that in order for competition to work its magic, you need to have rules in place, because otherwise, rather than competition, you have the law of the jungle.
This is Adam Smith's key insight. Competition is not a way of giving power to companies. It's a way of giving us power over them.
The Founding Fathers not only established a government of the people, by the people, for the people, they also established an economic system of the people, by the people, for the people. This is what distinguishes the United States from the rest of the world, and this is what gives us hope.
But is it possible to have markets that operate in the interests of sellers and buyers without a lot of government regulation? The answer might be yes, if they embody Adam Smith's ideas. It used to be that when you wanted to go someplace in a city, you had to wait for a taxi or rent a car. But now with apps like Uber and Lyft, that's all changed. Lyft?
Yes.
Hi, are you David?
Yes.
People today ride with strangers in their cars, and with sites like Airbnb, they sleep in strangers' homes. It's just a tiny part of a much larger and much more important social trend, an explosion of trust enabled by the internet. And the granddaddy of them all is eBay.
Almost every country in the world has buyers and sellers who work inside the eBay marketplace.
Devin Wenig is CEO of eBay Marketplaces.
eBay is founded on this principle of economic democracy, that individuals around the world who don't know each other and have never met can work in a system to be able to conduct economic transactions fairly and securely and have confidence in that.
eBay was founded in 1995 by Pierre Omidyar.
Pierre thought very strongly about the notion of the free market. He believed in Adam Smith's principles. He believed that an economic democracy would not only be a great business, but it had the potential to do immense amounts of good around the world.
eBay has hundreds of thousands of small sellers around the world that are now doing more than half their business outside of their national borders. One retailer that is profiting in this new era is Gelb Music.
Gelb was started in 1939, about 75 years ago, located right here in Redwood City, California. It's been here ever since, and carry about a little over 50,000 products here.
Mike Craig is Gelb's e-commerce marketing manager.
We have a complete line of drums, bass, guitars, recording equipment. We were waiting for our own website to be built. We took about 200 products, mostly snare drums, did about $200,000. The test definitely worked. The following year, we put up about 1,000 products, maybe a little bit over, and we did about $750,000 in sales.
We now have about 160 million active consumers who buy and sell in our marketplace every day. We now sell a little less than $90 billion of goods every year, and consumers access us from over 190 countries.
Well, eBay has saved the store, number one, but it's also opened our eyes to markets that we didn't think were obtainable.
One of the great things about marketplaces is that they act as an incredible price discovery mechanism.
Because if you're looking at a collectible or a coin or a comic book or a rare automobile, the likelihood is that there were more sales in eBay for that particular item than in any other marketplace in the world.
Adam Smith would have said that an invisible hand guides eBay sellers around the world. As prices are on the rise, because buyers want a particular item, sellers stream into the market to satisfy that demand. And when demand drops, prices go down.
Imagine a world where there's screens everywhere. Those screens are connected to a global marketplace. That global marketplace has all the world's inventory, priced fairly, because it's an open marketplace. And you're one click away from buying anything you want at any time for a fair price.
There are millions of exchanges each minute, all of them without regulation, among strangers, across borders and oceans. It's an enormous amount of business, based solely on trust.
Pierre's notion was let the buyers and sellers in the marketplace determine who the best buyers and sellers are. So the eBay feedback system was born.
The way ratings work is that when you sell a product, the customer can go back and rate you. Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? And that goes onto your record where everyone sees it.
Public services are never better performed than when their reward comes in consequence of their being performed, and is proportioned to the diligence employed in performing them.
I think being judged by your customers is a wonderful idea. I think that keeps us as sellers on our toes. You have to deliver on what you promise. And if you do that, you're rewarded by more customers and you'll grow.
The free market isn't about robbing people or cheating them or stealing from them. It is about cooperating with them. If people trust you, if you're giving them a good service, they will do business with you. If you're trying to cheat them, they might deal with you once, but once they've been cheated, you'll never see them again.
Part one of the promise is a fair, open, fast, trusted marketplace that's enabled by technology.
Coordinating a global marketplace like this takes one of the largest site operation centers in the world.
We do about 300 million searches a day on the eBay marketplace. There are computers and people and systems and processes that all have to work in sync to make sure that that's working 24/7.
When we look at forecasting and eBay is going to make up anywhere from 50 to 80% of our sales, that's a huge number.
There is a concept of a micro multinational, which I think is fascinating. And there are hundreds of thousands of them alive inside the eBay marketplace.
It's that family-owned, independent, just homegrown kind of store. We're just being able to sell around the world now.
So without either a strong corporate intervention in the sense of eBay or a strong government or regulatory intervention, this is a community that has grown enormously because, in essence, it's self-regulated. A free market is one of the most powerful forces on earth, and we've seen that with our business.
Adam Smith presented his ideas on the free market in his second great book, The Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1776, just months before the American colonies exploded in revolution. Copies made their way across the Atlantic and into the hands of those shaping the structure of the new republic. The founders were dealing with things like how to structure a government, an economy, the banking system, the church, the military, and Smith had a lot of things to say on all these points. So, does the United States follow Smith's principles? The answer can be found here at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.